Hi everybody, it's Sarah, in case you didn't see that by my channel name. I wanted to talk today about the Grief Recovery Handbook. It is written by John W. James and Russell Friedman, and they are the founders of the Grief Recovery Institute. And it wasn't that long ago that I saw some kind of ad, I believe on Facebook, and it seemed really interesting. And I was really skeptical because it just seemed too good to be true. And the word recovery kind of seemed tricky to me in regards to grief, because I've lost a lot of people in my life. Some very profound losses at a young age, or, a young adult. Like most of us, we've had losses that were pretty intense, and maybe some that weren't as intense. But anyway, I for one have done a lot of work reading self-help books and going to support groups and therapy, all kinds of stuff. And sometimes you get the right help and sometimes you don't. It's not perfect. But what I learned with this book, and I did attend a workshop, it was a 6-week workshop, was that grief is not always explained, and we're not always allowed to grieve the way we want to, and that if we use intellectual thinking instead of feeling as our guide, we're going to go astray, and it's going to be very difficult. And we may never get over it, or I don't know. I still don't think you get completely over it, but you learn how to move on and let go, not of your memories and of the reality that you did go through something difficult, but moving on to happiness and living a really good life despite your loss, or in spite. Gosh, and there's so many kinds of loss. My first, of course, I'm sorry, I'm kind of fumbling. It's a tough topic, but of course I thought of grief, with death, losing loved ones. But grief can also be any kind of change, including, but not limited to, changing your job, either because of retirement or getting fired or just choosing a different career, having to move, whether you choose to move or you have to move for financial reasons, illness, either yours or a loved one's, even, living with some kind of terrible abusive or addictive situation where you're not allowed to be a kid, or you don't have a sense of normalcy. So even positive change that you've planned on and wanted can be a form of loss, and it's not as intense as other kinds, but also divorce, or even, it doesn't have to be divorce, like legal marriage, but even just a long-term relationship that ends. And I'm kind of rambling, I'm sorry. But any kind of loss. I highly recommend finding a workshop. And every week we were encouraged to only read to a certain chapter or two. And then there was homework. And we met together as a group. I think there were 6 of us. 8. And there was some group discussion, and then after a few weeks we did share one-on-one, like we had a person that we shared more intimately with. It's a process. I found it extremely helpful. Even until like the last couple of weeks, I really was skeptical, because I really, like, recovery, that sounds like you're over it. And in a sense you are. You're free in a way that I never felt before. And one of my issues, and I didn't really realize it, was like not wanting to let go, because thinking if I did heal and was all better, that would mean my loss wasn't that important, and that the love, especially, for example, not only, but my sister and my mother, who died about 2 years apart when I was pretty young, in my early 20s. And I think somewhere in the back of my head that if I got too much better, that might have meant that I didn't love them as much as I did. And I got to tell you, we were like the Three Musketeers, so it was a very intense loss in many ways. So that was one of my things. Plus, not everybody was very helpful when I lost, especially my mom and sister, but many other people through my life. But those two, because I was very young and I was in a religion that did not encourage me to talk about it. I was scolded for not having enough faith in God, and all I had to do was pray, and that I should be just grateful they weren't suffering, which of course I was grateful that they weren't suffering. And I was very grateful to have had them in my life, but that didn't mean that I wasn't grieving still. So even people who mean well, they may say things like, it's for the best, they're at peace. There's many things. It's not like most people are trying to be helpful. They don't know what to do. They were either taught wrong, or they're just doing their best. And even going through grief myself, I have done some reaching out to people and tried to be, helpful and understanding and listening. Sometimes I don't know what to say either. I feel better about how to be present to somebody else, even if I'm uncomfortable with it, after reading this. I can't tell you how great it is. It's very simple, yet complex and deep. It changes a lot of myths about grief and how to get through it, how to move through it. I kept finding myself saying, yes, oh my gosh, yes. And these people who wrote the book, they've been through this, and they're honest. It's really great. So I encourage you to try to find a workshop. And if you can't, you can read the book by yourself. I'm really glad I did the workshop and just read a few chapters as guided with the homework. I think it would still be helpful either way. Okay. If you have questions, link them below and I'll try to answer them in a upcoming video. Peace.